open door was partially drawn aside, disclosing one or two brilliantly dressed groups strolling desultorily through the further rooms. The four persons assembled in the little boudoir had been so absorbed by their own passionate emotions and the violence of their quarrel, that they had not noticed the approach of Sir Percy Blakeney and of his friends. Juliette and Marguerite certainly were startled, and Candeille was evidently taken unawares. Chauvelin alone seemed quite indifferent, and stood back a little when Sir Percy advanced, in order to allow him to pass. But Candeille recovered quickly enough from her surprise. Without heeding Blakeney's proffered arm, she turned with all the airs of an insulted tragedy queen towards Marguerite. "So 'tis I," she said with affected calm, "who am to bear every insult in a house in which I was bidden as a guest. I am turned out like some intrusive and importunate beggar, and I, the stranger in this land, am destined to find that amidst all these brilliant English gentlemen there is not one man of honour. Monsieur Chauvelin," she added loudly, "our beautiful country has, meseems, deputed you to guard the honour as well as the worldly goods of your unprotected compatriots. I call upon you, in the name of France, to avenge the insults offered to me tonight." She looked round defiantly from one to the other of the several faces, which were now turned towards her, but no one for the moment spoke or stirred. Juliette, silent and ashamed, had taken Marguerite's hand in hers, and was clinging to it as if wishing to draw strength of character and firmness of purpose through the pores of the other woman's delicate skin. Sir Percy, with backbone still bent in a sweeping curve, had not relaxed his attitude of uttermost deference. The Prince of Wales and his friends were viewing the scene with slightly amused aloofness. For a moment, seconds at most, there was dead silence in the room, during which time it almost seemed as if the beating of several hearts could be distinctly heard. Then Chauvelin, courtly and urbane, stepped calmly forward. "Believe me, citizeness," he said, addressing Candeille directly and with marked emphasis, "I am entirely at your command. But am I not helpless, seeing that those who have so grossly insulted you are of your own irresponsible, if charming sex?" Like a great dog after a nap, Sir Percy Blakeney straightened his long back and stretched it out to its full length. "La!" he said pleasantly, "my ever-engaging friend from Calais. Sir, your servant. Meseems we are ever destined to discuss amiable matters in an amiable spirit. A glass of punch, Monsieur... Chauvelin?" "I must ask you, Sir Percy," rejoined Chauvelin sternly, "to view this matter with becoming seriousness." "Seriousness is never becoming, sir," said Blakeney, politely smothering a slight yawn, "and it is vastly unbecoming in the presence of ladies." "Am I to understand then, Sir Percy," said Chauvelin, "that you are prepared to apologize to Mademoiselle Candeille for the insults offered to her by Lady Blakeney?" Sir Percy again tried to smother that tiresome little yawn, which seemed most distressing, when he desired to be most polite. Then he flicked off a grain of dust from his immaculate lace ruffle, and buried his long slender hands in the capacious pockets of his white satin breeches. Finally he said with the most good-natured of smiles: "Sir, have you seen the latest fashion in cravats? I would wish to draw your attention to the novel way in which we in England tie a Mechlin-edged bow." "Sir Percy," retorted Chauvelin firmly, "since you will not offer Mademoiselle Candeille the apology which she has the right to expect from you, are you prepared that you and I should cross swords like honourable gentlemen?" Blakeney laughed his usual pleasant, somewhat shy laugh, shook his powerful frame, and looked from his altitude of 6 feet 3 inches down on the small sable-clad figure of ex-ambassador Chauvelin. "The question is, sir," he said slowly, "should we then be two honourable gentlemen crossing swords?" "Sir Percy..." "Sir..." Chauvelin, who for one moment had seemed ready to lose his temper, now made a sudden effort to resume a calm and easy attitude, and said quietly: "Of course, if one of us is coward enough to shirk the contest..." He did not complete the sentence, but shrugged his shoulders expressive of contempt. The other side of the curtained doorway a little crowd had gradually assembled, attracted hither by the loud and angry voices which came from that small boudoir. Host and hostess had been missed from the reception rooms for some time. His Royal Highness too had not been seen for the quarter of an hour. Like flies attracted by the light, one by one or in small isolated groups, some of Lady Blakeney's guests had found their way to the room adjoining the royal presence. As His Highness was standing in the doorway itself, no one could of course cross the threshold, but everyone could see into the room, and could take stock of the various actors in the little comedy. They were witnessing a quarrel between the French envoy and Sir Percy Blakeney, wherein the former was evidently in deadly earnest, and the latter merely politely bored. Amused comments flew to and fro. Laughter and a babble of irresponsible chatter made an incessant chirruping accompaniment to the duologue between the two men. But at this stage, the Prince of Wales, who hitherto had seemingly kept aloof from the quarrel, suddenly stepped forward and abruptly interposed the weight of his authority and of his social position between the bickering adversaries. "Tush, man," he said impatiently, turning more especially towards Chauvelin, "you talk at random. Sir Percy Blakeney is an English gentleman, and the laws of this country do not admit of duelling, as you understand it in France, and I for one certainly could not allow..." "Pardon your Royal Highness," interrupted Sir Percy with irresistible bonhomie, "your Highness does not understand the situation. My engaging friend here does not propose that I should transgress the laws of this country, but that I should go over to France with him and fight him there, where duelling and other little matters of that sort are allowed." "Yes, quite so," rejoined the Prince. "I understand Monsieur Chauvelin's desire, but what about you, Blakeney?" "Oh!" replied Sir Percy lightly, "I have accepted his challenge, of course." Chapter 11